Towards the end of our trip to New Mexico in the western U.S., we drove nearly the length of the state from the north to the south, from up in Taos, down across the high plains to Chavez County, where Roswell, New Mexico is located, on our way to Carlsbad, New Mexico, which is in the next county south, Eddy County. And this just shows you the main road we took was Route 285 through virtually an uninhabited area. There's one little place on the map that's called Ramon, and I don't even remember seeing anything that we might have driven by. It's just a place on the map. It's not even a real place. So it was a totally desolate area, and this gives you an idea of what the area looked like driving south to Roswell. Totally flat, totally barren, hardly any cows or people or anything. So with this backdrop, we were anxious to get to Roswell, New Mexico, home of the UFOs. Now, one of the things you're greeted with when you first drive into Roswell coming from the north is this alien holding up a Dunkin' Donuts sign, and then right next to that is a McDonald's that's designed like a spaceship. So it looks like Roswell's making a thing of their notoriety for where a UFO supposedly crashed in 1947, a long time ago. And the streetlights have the eyes of aliens painted on them, and you're greeted by the store Asian Station as you drive. And on the side of the wall of the store, it has this artist rendering of a flying saucer crashing somewhere in the ranch lands around Roswell. And so we went inside the store and we looked for cute kitsch, but it was really kind of lean pickings. And poor woman working behind the cash register looked like she wanted to shoot herself. I don't know. It just seemed like too kitschy. So we moved on. We saw other stores. We got there late in the day, so if we were going to go to any of these stores, we would have to get to them quick before they closed. But we found that just by looking in the windows that they all sort of sold pretty much the same stuff. But we drove around town just to see if everybody was getting into the UFO spirit. We saw this place, Spacewalk, which advertises that it's a black light adventure, and there's some murals on some blank walls. And the town of Roswell has an official little park where they have this officially commissioned mural, we believe. And we were trying to pick up the spirit because we wanted to believe too. Just show a little video here of downtown Roswell, which is really not much to look at. It's kind of a dry, dusty town here in the middle of the high plains. There they got some alien type stores. Alright, and then they have a UFO museum over here. Take a closer look. Got an alien in the storefront. Looks like it used to be the old movie theater, and now it's the UFO Museum and Research Center. So the main tourist attraction in Roswell is the UFO Museum, which is right on Main Street that runs north-south. It's also known as Route 285, which we drove in on into town. It was closed when we got there. It was after 5, but we looked in the windows and tried to see what we could see. And here's a replica of a flying saucer that may or may not have crashed outside of Roswell. Another rendering of what a flying saucer might look like. It's made out of an old movie theater, the old Plains Theater. So that's what the museum is built out of in the marquee. This is looking in through the window at the main entry lobby, where you can learn more about the UFO incident in 1947. Like I said, it's only open 9 to 5, but it is open daily. And in the picture windows, you can see some articles that came out in the press shortly after this occurred. The supposed incident happened on July 4th in 1947, and no less. A rancher discovered some weird stuff on his ranch ranch. And it wasn't just outside of Roswell, it was way outside of Roswell, much further north, a couple of counties away. And this headline says the RAAF captures flying saucer. And RAAF, I looked that up and it only came up with Royal Australian Air Force, but no, it stands for Roswell Army Airfield. But the Roswell Daily Record was covering the story, so stuff came out on July 8th and July 9th. Nobody actually saw the saucer. Supposedly it was taken by the government, flown to Fort Worth, Texas. Something to that effect. And here's some serious looking generals and majors looking at some material that was picked up by the rancher. Looks kind of like a weather balloon. That's what they think it was. That's what the official Army story is, that it was a weather balloon that deflated and crashed and its debris spread out over an area below. And here's a sign that is pictured in the window of the UFO museum. When we were driving around town, we were looking for signs like, how do you get to the crash site? Where is it? But this is way out of town. You wouldn't have even seen any signs for it in Roswell. But if you manage to find it somewhere between Roswell and Taos, then there'll be this engraved stone on the site of what supposedly happened in 1947 on July 4th. But we really wanted it to happen. We even started looking at places like Sonic, thinking, well, that's kind of space age. Maybe aliens have infiltrated our commercial establishments and affected us, but we were kind of reaching there. So kind of tiring of the kitschiness of the tourist stuff related to UFOs. We looked around for other things of interest in Roswell while we were there before we continued our drive further south to Carlsbad, New Mexico. And the county courthouse caught our eye, built in 1911, which was a year before New Mexico became a state. And it has a green top dome. And it's a very significant building. It's almost as big as some states' capitol buildings. And one thing I noticed when I was looking at this picture was it has this pretty extensive war memorial where it has a monument that identifies different foreign conflicts, World War I, World War II, and also the War on Terror. And you kind of have to walk through this to get to the courthouse now. Looks like it's a fairly recently built monument. Also, what's interesting is they have a monument for the 10 Commandments outside of the courthouse, which is a little unusual, but it's been there for a long time and it's still there. Just driving around town, the housing stock that we saw was nothing to get excited about. It was pure plains drabness. But there were some buildings like this large grain complex that I don't know if it's still operating. It's getting a little rusty, but that was on one side of town. And this was an Army-Navy store with a tank-like vehicle out front, something to see. And this is Goddard High School, named after one of the first rocket scientists who set up his lab and did experiments in the Roswell area, Robert Goddard. And when you talk about rocket scientists, he was one of the first ones. And then we were still looking for anything, but it was kind of dribbling out as you drove south through town. There were just a couple of aliens left at a gas station, and that was about it. So this was the town of Roswell that we drove up and down the streets to see what was going on here. Do indicate the UFO Museum and Research Center as being one of the items of interest in the town. And it kind of is fitting that it's on streets at the corner of Main Street and Bland Street. So Roswell did seem kind of bland to us, but I could see how things would seem more exciting. You had a lot of Air Force planes flying overhead. Might mean that something was going on. And in the foreground, you see the old marquee for the Plains Theater that's now the UFO Museum. And I have an idea for Roswell. Here's what the town looked like back in the late 1940s, looking down Main Street. And I just think it'd be kind of cool if Roswell or some town would do everything and make everything look like it was 1947 again. That'd be pretty wild. It'd be like visiting a place like Colonial Williamsburg, only it would be 1940s America. Anyway, that's just an idea. So that was our short time in Roswell. We saw what we thought we could see and turned over every stone we thought we could turn over. But it was time to keep moving on. So the next video will be further south in Carlsbad, and after that, Carlsbad Caverns. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.